Dr. Craig Heilmann, he's behind the times, of course, being a resident of the lucky country, Australia. He joins us at what time is it there, Craig?
It's 8:20 in the morning, my friend.
Oh, sorry.
So, yeah.
Sorry to get you up so early. I feel bad now.
Oh, mate, I'm going to have to go back to bed after we finish.
We're having a late morning tea here, but hey, thanks very much for being part of the program. The other thing that I'm grateful for, because I mean, this isn't very mature of me, but I've never been accused of that really. When things aren't going so well, sometimes you feel better about yourself when you know it's not going so well for other people as well. You think, oh, well,
True.
gosh, it's not just me. Tough times
Yeah.
here in New Zealand, but also tough times in Australia as well. And actually wanting to change the order here, particularly for small businesses in Australia.
Yeah.
I mean, joking aside, it's really tough. I mean, in similar sectors here in New Zealand as well, in places like construction, hospitality, people
Yeah.
trying to stay afloat. It's pretty tough out there.
Mate, it's horrible. And look, small business has been the backbone of Australia, just like New Zealand. And to see whole streets of shops or, all sort of cottage industries and stuff just disappearing because it's impossible for small business to make things work with the structural costs of business, electricity prices, whatever it is, there's just structural costs, government red tape. Obviously, the transformation to a green economy has changed the way we provide energy and at what costs and things like that. So Australia's got itself into a real pickle, and we're losing our small businesses at a pretty alarming rate. So I think this last year has been one of the worst years on record. And really this falls to the government to fix, but the government don't appear. And there's nobody in the government, by the way, who's probably ever run a small business. So that will tell us part of the problem.
Yeah, certainly. Is this a blip, do you think? Is there much optimism out there, or is it spiralling downwards as we head towards Christmas?
A lot of pessimism at the moment, and I think there's a feeling that the government just don't get it. They've never got the cost of living issues in Australia, and they just don't get the cost of business. And they're not very friendly to it. And I think, in fairness, the last government in New Zealand was perceived to be that way as well.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of the trouble. But, these are family businesses typically, and they may have quite a history in their communities or whatever. And it's not great when the local bakery that you love to get your, I don't know, custard tart or particular pastry you like, it's not great when they go out of business because you probably know those people and they're part of your community. So it's pretty depressing in some areas.
Yeah, that society cohesion, the yet to count the cost on that, I think. If you think back a couple of years ago, it was tough on small businesses with some of the lockdowns and restrictions, although the government was happy to support on both sides of the Tasman. Actually, there's some government support there. This time round, the circumstance is almost as tough, but no support from the government.
Yeah, you don't get the handouts that you got during the COVID period. But look, in the end, this falls back on the taxpayer anyway, because if you haven't got a business and you don't have a job, you're going to be on to the dole or whatever. So ultimately, it falls back on the wider community to provide support. It'd be far better to have people running successful businesses than putting their hand out to the taxpayer. So look, it's a challenge. It's been a challenge right across the Western world. And look, it's just the way things are done these days. But even small farms are struggling, and it's just a real shame in terms of what used to be our way of life.
In a different time, you might think, well, hey, if it doesn't work out as a small business, as an entrepreneur, I could always join the army. However, things looking perhaps even more bleak there. Morale in the Australian armed forces at an all-time low.
Well, mate, the morale is horrible. We can't recruit enough people to fill our spots, and it's not like we have a massive military anyway, but we need about 100,000 people. And right now, the government is paying hand over fist to keep currently enlisted people in their contracts. So they're paying a lot of extra money to keep people that would have retired or gone out of the military because they can't recruit. We've also reached out to our neighbours, Tonga, Samoa, etc., asking, would you lend us people? Could we put them into our military? That seems strange. I'm sure we're probably outreaching to New Zealand as well, no doubt.
Exactly.
But wider than that, there's just morale issues around sexuality. There's morale issues around the wokeness of the generals. There's morale issues around the fact that some young women that enter the military feel that they get sexually bullied, sexually harassed. There's kind of a culture that still isn't right in the military. And so what people are expressing in the Army and the Navy particularly is a lack of trust in their leaders. The Air Force is doing slightly better, a couple of points better. I'm not sure why. I can't explain that.
Exactly. And hey, it's suppose a measure of saying, you know what, it's not just about the money. It's not just about, if we pay them better, maybe they'll stick around. And honestly, when it comes to what makes the military functional, then morale's probably pretty much at the top of the list. You need to, I suppose, have a belief that you're respected and you're doing something that's worthwhile.
No, absolutely. And I think, obviously we have different attitudes toward patriotism these days, but people used to love their country, and part of loving your country sometimes is thinking, well, I grew up in a country town. I know how to shoot. I'm going to go join the military for a few years and learn some skills, etc. And it was sort of a patriotic thing. I don't think the messages we send these days about patriotism are all that helpful, because we tend to run our countries down and tell about how bad our history's been, and we're all, Australia's got a deep, dark past that we should all be ashamed of. I don't think that encourages young people to go, yeah, that's worth dying for. That's rather like being asked to die for Australia Post, isn't it? It's not particularly exciting. So, you want to know if you're going to give your life in a cause that the thing you're fighting for is worth it. And I don't know that we're doing a great job anymore sending those signals to young Australians. So we're paying a price, and the generals are not popular with the people that work for them.
Yeah, certainly. Hey, all the best with the recruiting in the Pacific Islands. I think that's your strategy for most of the rugby league teams in Australia.
True.
Just say, I hope that works out. I don't think you'll do very well with the New Zealand military. I think a third of our Navy is now supporting a reef in Samoa. Too soon, perhaps. But
I think it was nice of New Zealand to make another diving attraction. I think that's wonderful.
Well, yeah, no, exactly. That was one of our better ships. However, wrapping up with something which is, this is a bit of a calamity. And honestly, I wish, on radio, I wish we could show the pictures of this. Horrific scenes from a tourist attraction in Western Australia, in WA. Some unseasonal November storms. Broken bodies all around, but actually we're talking different sorts of bodies. This is a gnome attraction, Craig.
Yes, Gnomesville, near Bunbury, where there are literally, gazillions of gnomes, but many of them have been destroyed. So you're right. It's literally like taking a trip. And there are just carcasses everywhere. Yep. And these are garden gnomes who've been set up in a place called Gnomesville, where you can go and see the gnomes, but at the moment the gnomes are broken down and destroyed. It's not even like the terracotta warriors in China, which are still all standing. These are lying on the ground, smashed. The flooding has been terrible. So yeah, Gnomesville. I don't know how they recover, because I don't know that we're making any more garden gnomes. So
I think you need some people perhaps with some skills and some PVA glue, or perhaps some super glue. The thing with gnomes, I suppose you can glue them back together. And hey, it's also a bit of a sign for Western Australia if one of their top tourist attractions is Gnomesville. That's another reason not to visit.
Think about the sort of crisis we're in, mate. I mean, even Humpty Dumpty wouldn't save us here, because we haven't got the King's soldiers and the King's men to put Humpty Dumpty back together again.
Yeah,
we haven't got those people either. What are we going to do to get the gnomes back together?
Certainly a bit of a crisis for you, Craig, but hey, I'm sure you can figure it out. Thanks for what you do. Thanks so much for joining us once again.
Bless you, mate. So good to talk. See you, Andrew.
Hey, thanks very much for joining us in the Rhema studio. Thanks very much for watching the interview. It's kind of nice to have an audience, actually. And if you did like what you watched, then do give us a like, do give us the thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more interviews like that one, or perhaps even better, subscribe and those interviews will come straight to you. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.